Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to have Tricia Johnson on with us. Tricia is the Director of Communications and Development at the Ottawa Food Bank. She's passionate about building genuine relationships with people. She has a deep history fundraising for the arts in Ottawa and Toronto, where she's worked with Ottawa's Chamberfest, Canadian Stage, and the Royal Conservatory of Music. Tricia chairs the Ottawa Food Bank's IDEA Committee, a cross-functional team that practices inclusion, continuous learning, and actions focused on promoting food security for all. So welcome, Tricia. So let's kind of talk about the volunteers for a little bit. Any great organization, any charitable organization has a cadre of volunteers that are kind of like the lifeblood of the organization. They're the board members, they're the committee members, sometimes they're the canvassers, the head cook and bottle washer. They really do a lot of work. But I found that the volunteers, as of late, I've seen, some of the advertisements in the different newspapers that announces, our brand new board, and they have the typical head and shoulders shot. And it tends to be kind of the old, same white folks that are on the boards, has been there 20, 30 years ago, that aren't necessarily representative of the community that they serve. Mm-hmm. So can you speak to any of that? Has that, been changing, or is it something that I'm just, for whatever reason, picking up on?
I will, speaking of the, and I'm only going to talk about sort of the experiences that I've had. I think a lot of it, again, it's about the cause that you represent and the communities that you engage with. A lot of at least when it comes to volunteer boards of directors, most boards are looking for people who are able to make gifts, and unfortunately right now that tends to be a lot of people who do tend to fit into that profile of being older, white, male. A lot more women are joining boards, and there is a lot of value to be had from communities of color. But I think that there has to be a willingness to build genuine relationships with those people and look beyond the dollars raised. I think the programming has to speak to the communities that those volunteers represent, and a lot of times that isn't always the case. So it takes time to build those relationships, to make sure that your intentions are genuine and clear, and also to make sure for the volunteers that you are targeting, to make sure that for them they feel comfortable, that they can trust the charity and advocate on behalf of the charity to the various communities that they are a part of.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, you've been in the fundraising world for quite some time, as have I, and I'm sure people call you up all the time and say, Tricia, I'm thinking about leaving my job at XYZ, and I'm thinking about doing something in the nonprofit arena. Can you kind of share with me what your advice to them would be?
I would definitely encourage people to select a nonprofit whose cause you really resonate with. When you're able to talk about what you're fundraising for from the heart, it really comes through. It means that you can really tap into your natural gifts. You can obviously develop the skills that you need, but having a real genuine connection with what you're fundraising for makes a big difference in terms of how you're able to communicate, and just it energizes you. If you're fundraising or working for a nonprofit for a mission that really just you don't get it, or you might be uncomfortable with it for whatever that reason might be, that comes through. It comes through in how you want to talk about it with other people, and just in your energy in terms of doing the extra research that's required to show and demonstrate how your not-for-profit stands out from others, because there's a lot of really great charities, but you really want to put forth your best foot forward in terms of why yours needs the support right now. And ongoing as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that so much of what we do with philanthropy comes from our childhood and how we have our discussions around the dinner table. And I know you have two kids, I have two kids as well. And I'm sure that fundraising is always spoken about at your table because my kids were always fascinated by things. You come home and you tell them about your day. So, how are you imparting philanthropy to your kids? Because it's different as a fundraiser than it is from John Q. Public.
Right. One of the funny things has been because I've had the opportunity to work from home during the pandemic. When my kids come home, I'm home now. And so they sometimes hear me on the phone with donors. And so when I'm, again, talking about that idea of really tapping into the cause, why I'm supporting it, why the donor's supporting it, sometimes they will hear me on the phone. And I think this was at some point last year, my son would have been 8 or 9 years old. And after my call, he came and he just actually gave me a hug. And he's just like, I'm really proud of you, Mom. Because he could really picked up on the fact that this person made a gift that's going to help so many other people in a really fundamental way. And so I would say that, we often hear that our kids are watching us and you always want to model through example. But that's one way that it's come sort of to life at my home. And another way is just again, and I'm thinking actually my daughter was a similar age, between 8 to 10 years old, just wanting to become involved in walks that would help just people who are living with so much less. I think that we do have an innate desire to help others who are struggling. And as we get older, sometimes that tends to become a little bit more muted. As we kind of, become a little bit more consumed with, where we want to go or the things that we want to achieve. But just trying to be open to talking about it and exploring ways of, what are some ways that you might want to tell your classmates about this, tell some neighbors, how do you want to get your friends from the neighborhood involved? And being a part of that has been really great. But also I have to be careful as a fundraiser not to take over the show.
Yeah, true enough. But, it's so interesting that I think that a lot of times kids, the younger kids, have no concept that there are other people so much less fortunate than they are. And, they'll have a fit that they don't have the newest toy or gadget or whatever. And, when you take a look and but you have food on your table and, you have a roof over your head and, you're able to go to summer camp and you're able to have a bike and all these things. And they don't realize that because their circle of friends tend to be, very similar as well. So they don't kind of see that other side of the equation. And I think it's so important to expose our kids to that other side, and so that they can have that sense of empathy and really want to be able to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, one of those very simple things, and it's not necessarily related to philanthropy, it is and it isn't, is we're not a religious family, but I always try and make a moment with my son. My daughter is a little bit older, so she obviously wants to have a little bit more independence. But just at the end of each night before bed, we talk about what we're thankful for. Just has to be one thing, and then on top of that, we try and identify a wish or an intention that we would have for someone else in the world. It doesn't have to be anything very specific. But it often does become something specific. But it's always interesting to hear what comes out of what it is that they identify that they would like to sort of send good intentions out to.
It's amazing. We're kind of on the same line. Every Friday night at our Sabbath table, we go around in a circle and say, what, in the last week, what are we thankful for that's happened in the last week?
Yeah.
And, it can't be a negative, right? Like it can't say like, I'm thankful I didn't get COVID this week. That doesn't count. But it's something very proactive, and it really makes them think. And we've actually started introducing, we're thanking someone else for doing something.
Oh, that's
right?
lovely.
So,
I really like that.
And it's kind of neat. And, my oldest is away at college, but my youngest is certainly there. And he loves that stuff. For him, he spends a lot of time thinking about it. So on a Tuesday, he'll say, I know what I'm going to say on Friday night.
Oh, lovely. That's really nice.
So, it's a neat concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tricia, this has been absolutely amazing. If folks wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, as you know, I work at the Ottawa Food Bank, so you can certainly reach me by email, Tricia at ottawafoodbank.ca.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.